So, good morning class. Today, let's proceed sa ato ang next topic, which is the charging system. No? So, first ato ang charging system is the alternators and regulators. So, what is alternators and regulators? The charging system is an important part of an electrical system. Nagpo-provide ito ng electric current para sa lights, radio, heater, engine electrical systems, and other electrical accessories. It also maintain the batteries in charge state. So, minimaintain niya na dapat charge always yung battery, no, recharging them as necessary. So, next, alternator. So, the alternator generates electrical power to run accessories and to recharge the batteries. It is normally driven by a belt located off the crankshaft. Mechanical energy from the crankshaft is converted by the alternator into the electrical energy for the batteries and accessories. No? The alternator is an electric generator na nagko-convert ng mechanical energy to electrical energy. No? Gamit ang kanyang alternating current. Alternator that uses permanent magnet for its magnetic field is called magneto. No? Hindi magneto ng kalaban sa X-Men, kundi yung magnetic field ng alternator. Alternators in power stations driven by steam turbines are called turbo alternator. So yung turbo alternator naman ay yung power station na ginagamitan ng steam turbine. So next, alternator components. So ito yung mga alternator components natin. First, rectifier, rotor, slip ring and bearing, stator, drive and bearing, pulley, drive and bracket, slip ring and bracket. So, first is the rectifier. Ito yung rectifier, class. The rectifier is used to convert current from alternating current to direct current during the charging process. No? Muna ito ang rectifier. So, take a screenshot. So, next is rotor. Ang rotor ng alternator is iba nung rotor sa ating distributor, ha. So, the rotor is the spinning mass inside the alternator that rotates via the pulley and drive belt system. The rotor acts as a spinning electromagnet. So, next, slip rings. The slip rings are used as means of providing direct current and power to the rotor. So, next, slip ring and bearing. So, the bearings are designed to support the rotation of the rotor shaft. Next, stator. So, muna itong stator. The stator consists of several coils of wire wound through an iron ring. The stator sits outside the rotor when a magnetic field is created. The electrical current is made. So next, drive and bearing. The bearing are designed to support the rotation of the rotor shaft. Pulley. The pulley is connected to the rotor shaft and the drive belt system. Rotation created by the engine and the drive belt system turns the pulley, beginning the charging process. Drive and bracket. The slip ring and frame houses and diodes and brush assembly, while the drive and frame retains the rotor assembly, fan, and pulley. The stator assembly is sandwiched between the two end frames. And last is the slip and bracket. So, ito siya. Next is regulators. So, the regulator is the brain of the charging system. It monitors both battery and stator voltage, and depending on the measured voltage, the regulator will adjust the amount of rotor field current to control alternator output. So, regulators can be mounted both internal or external. Yung current technology ay gumagamit ng internal regulator kaysa nung nakaraan. The voltage regulator acts as an electric traffic cap para makontrol yung alternator output. Nasa-sense nito kung kailan kailangan, no? Nasa-sense nito kung kailangan na ba ng battery mag-recharge, or when the vehicle electrical needs increase, and adjust the alternator's output accordingly. The batteries are reservoir of chemical electrical power. Yung primary purpose talaga nila is to crank the engine. They also supply power to the vehicle accessories when the electrical load is too great for the alternator alone. So, next is charging system trouble diagnosis, testing, and service. So, before discussing the preventive maintenance, ito yung trouble diagnostic procedure, we're going to cover some certain environmental and product application factors that can cause charging system malfunction. So, ito ay first is the excessive heat. An alternator can become damaged if it operates too long at excessive temperature, no? Damaging heat levels are generated sa dalawang paraan. When the alternator becomes dirty, either external or internal, sa labas man o sa loob, restricting its ability to dissipate heat from its external surface, or di niya inaalaw yung air na pumasok o pass through the unit. And pangalawa, when the air ducts, the heat shield are not replaced after the alternator has been serviced. So, yun. Next is the dirt and dust, no? So, charging system components operate less efficiency when build-up of dirt particles form around wire and cable connection. So, yun, self-explanatory na siya, no? Less efficient build-up kung hugaw nga to ang wire and cable connection points. Dirty connection points impair, you know, the flow of electrical current. And last is the vibration. So, what's may labot sa vibration, no? If charging system components are poorly or loosely mounted to the vehicle, so wala kayo natarong og taod sa ato ang vehicle frames, the resulting vibration can damage sensitive internal components. So, madaot ang sasulod sa to ang component. A loosely mounted component will also diminish the performance of the important belt drives. This is very important lalo na sa mga high-powered engines. So, preventive maintenance procedure, the object of preventive maintenance procedure is to identify, no, and correct the potential problems before they occur. So, there are, sa preventive maintenance procedures, there are 3 maintenance procedure na makaka-enhance ng efficiency ng ating charging system functions. Ang tatlong procedures na to also represents the initial steps you should take when fully diagnosing or troubleshooting a problem in a vehicle's charging system. The three preventive maintenance procedures are: first is the clean alternators and connection points. So ensure that all alternator surfaces are clean to the point that they do not have to build up of dirt, grease, or dust. No? Airflow passage must also be clear para yung air can easily pass through the unit. Lahat ng connection point must be clean at malayo sa corrosion. So next is component mounting bracket. As mentioned previously, you need to make sure that the charging system components are securely mounted to their applicable brackets. The brackets, in turn, need to be bolted securely to the engine. Again, if charging system components are poorly loosely mounted, damaging vibration and diminishing drive belt performing are the result. So, yun. And next is the tension and condition of the belts. You need to also check the belt for proper tension. So, be sure na yung engine is, first is, be sure na yung engine natin is naka-off. Maluwang na belt will slip the pulley and fail to turn the alternator rotor. So, luag, no? Luag. Pwede ma-slide ang atoang belt sa atoang pulley and fail to turn the alternator rotor. Check belt tension with cricket belt tension gauge. Refer to vehicle manufacturer specifications for proper belt tension. Before you adjust it, however, tilt the belt. Tilt the belt and inspect it for glazing, cracks, or dryness. A worn or damaged belt should be replaced. If the belt is in satisfactory condition, excuse me, the new belt should be checked for proper tension as well. So pag na-replace na yung belt, yung ipapalit natin na belt, kailangan din natin i-check for proper tension. A new belt, no, loses 60% of its tension in its first few hours of operation. So 60% na yun ang mawala sa ato ang belt tension sa few first hours pa lang na. So it needs to be tested under heavy load and then retensioned after a new belt is installed. Run the engine with every accessory turned on for 15 minutes. Then check the belt tension again and adjust it if needed. Please note that the belts on high amperage output alternators may need retentioning twice after installation. Finally, in most cases and most vehicles, belt tension should be tested 10,000 miles. No? 10,000 miles. Remember na. So, next is the diagnostic troubleshooting procedure. So, before you begin analyzing the charging system, you must be sure the batteries have been properly tested and that are at least 75% charged. Otherwise, any electrical test you conduct on the charging system will be inaccurate. So, dili tama. Timely preventive maintenance or the charging system should keep it running smoothly. However, when a problem occur, pag may problema, defective diagnostic procedure will help you locate and correct. No? So, pag may problema, mag-diagnose din ka. We're going to show I'm going to show you the steps to perform 4 different tests, especially related to the charging system. So, next is, first step is the alternator performance test. So, sa ating alternator performance test, first is locate the alternator. Mostly sa itong mga vehicles, ang alternator is located near the top front of the engine. Sa ibang vehicles naman, it should be buried o nasa ilalim, no, towards the bottom, making it difficult to get. So mahirap yung sa ibang vehicle kasi nasa ilalim. So next is check the engine drive belt. Inspect the engine drive belt kung gaano siya ka tight, no, kung guot ba. Konting tip lang dito, no, press on the belt between the two pulleys. So yung dalawang pulley, press mo yung sa gitna nilang dalawa and make sure na wala kayo sila galihok dalawa, no, hindi masyadong gumagalaw, no. A loose belt can cause the alternator not to charge properly. So next is listen for noises. So start the engine and listen for any strange noises such as squeaking or grinding. So maminaw data pag start ng engine kung meron mga squeak o mga grind na tingog na kanana dato sa tuwang makina kanana. So next, check the alternator's bearing, no. Place one end of the rubber hose on the alternator case and the other to the end to your ear. This works like a doctor's stethoscope. So yung rubber hose daw dito sa other end niya, ang isa sa imuhang dalunggan. Mura ka to sa doktor daw lagi, no. Pag ang grinding o squeaking, pag ang tingog kay pag yung sounds so malakas o very loud, habang nakikinig ka sa hose, then you may have a bearing failure beginning in the alternator. So it will be need to be replaced o kailangan nating palitan yung bearing. So next is begin testing the alternator. Now you're ready to begin the actual testing, no. Then first turn off the engine, then connect the voltage meter. Turn your voltage meter on and set it to DC or direct current volts. Place the positive lead to the positive terminal on the battery and the negative to the negative terminal sa battery. If the battery terminals are loose or corroded, you may want to address that issue first. So pag loose mo ang terminal sa battery or corroded, pwede ka mangita na lang kaglaing battery na magamiton or limpyohan na lang sa nimo. So observe the battery voltage. So pag maano na yung battery, it should read 12.5 to 12.65 volts lang dapat siya. If the battery is low, you may want to have it load tested. Next is read the voltage on the meter. Start the engine and observe the voltage on the meter. The voltage should read minimum of 13 volts. Yung good na alternator, magre-result dapat siya ng between 13.5 hanggang 14.5 volts. Yun. 13.5 hanggang 14.5 volts. Basta good yung alternator. So, next, stress test the alternator. Dito, place a load on the alternator by turning on the headlights, the radio, and the air conditioning. the voltage should remain high with these circuits on. So dapat high lang dyan siya kahit maraming naka-on. If the voltage does not change when the engine is started, if it does not get above 13 volts, or if it charges above 15 volts, no, pag hindi siya maglampas ng 13 at saka maglampas siya ng 15 volts, then the alternator may be faulty. So daot ato ang alternator. No, mo ni hinunduman nito. Pag malampas siya, pag di siya kalampas og 13, daot siya. Pag malampas siya og 15, daot pud siya, no? So nandiyo siya sa 13.5 to 14.5 volts. Quick tip, if the voltage is low, you can lightly wiggle the electrical connections on the back. No, wiggle na tong connection sa back sa alternator to see if the voltage changes. If it does, no, pag nag-change, then it may be a bad connection, loose corroded connection on the alternator, or the battery can cause bad alternator readings. Next is the alternator performance test under load. So unsa man ni siya, no? How to performance test under load. Keep engine running at 1,500 RPM or revolution per minute, and meters are connected. Turn on vehicle loads until 75%. No, 75% of the alternator's rated output is achieved on the ammeter display. Record voltage on voltmeter. Compare readings to that taken during the alternator performance test. If alternator voltage drop more than 5 volts, so pag mag-drop more than 5 volts for a 12 volt system or 7 volt for a 24 volt system, no? Pag mag-drop siya ng 5 volts sa 12 volt na system or 7 volts sa ating 25 volt system, then ang ating alternator is defective. An alternative method of putting load on an alternator is with a carbon pile tester. Connect carbon pile tester across the batteries. Adjust carbon pile until desired reading is obtained on ammeter. Record voltage on voltmeter and shut off the vehicle. Ito lang. Next, alternator cable test. To test positive cable connect the ammeter to the positive cable from the alternator. Make sure the ammeter is at least 6 inches or 15 cm away from the alternator to eliminate the possibility of faulty readings. Connect the voltmeter's negative lead to the positive terminal. No? Kataha, negative lead to the positive terminal of the alternator, and the positive lead to the positive terminal of the battery. Ito. Okay, ulit. Remember. Connect the battery and voltmeter's negative lead. No? Ang ating, makikita nyo dyan, ang negative lead, pupunta sa positive terminal ng alternator. Then, the positive lead to the positive terminal of the battery. So, yun. To test the positive cable, connect the ammeter to the positive cable of the make sure that the ammeter is 6 inches away from the alternator to eliminate possibility of faulty readings. Start the engine and set engine RPM to 1 1,500 RPMs. Muna siya itong operating speed. No, turn on the vehicle loads until 75% of alternators rated output is achieved on ammeter. So, if reading is greater, no, pag that 0.25 volts in a 12 volt circuit, check all the wire connections and cable connections. So kato siya, no? If reading is greater than 0.25 volts in a 12 volt circuit, check all wire connection and cable connections. So if less than 0.25 volts naman, is yung cable natin is good siya. So turn off vehicle loads and shut off engine. So sa negative naman, to test negative cable voltmeters negative leads to the negative terminal of the battery. No, and the positive lead to the negative terminal of the alternator and run test again. So imo lang sila bali pinalit mo lang sila, ibaliktad lang nato sila. Next is alternator replacement. So in the event that all of the diagnostic troubleshooting procedures point to the faulty alternator, pag lahat ng ginawa nating diagnostic o troubleshooting is napunta rin sa sirang alternator, you'll need to select a new alternator o palitan natin yung alternator. Its amperage capacity rating must support the vehicle's intended application or load and duty cycle, no? So lahat ng effort mo sa pag-diagnose, sa end naman, yung sira pala is yung mismong alternator. So, kailangan natin palitan. If the vehicle has a history of charging problems and you've eliminated failure in the system, you may want to reevaluate the capacity of the alternator. When installing a new alternator and retentioning belts, be sure to carefully follow the instructions noted earlier sa ato ang preventive maintenance na discuss ganina. So, I guess that is the end of our slide. Thank you for listening. Although this is a video discussion, I hope na dagan mog na tun-an, and yes, so thank you.